You know what? Baseball doesn't sound too bad. Those Rockies are not getting any worse, right? I'd probably enjoy not having any expectations. Wait, did I just say that live? Oh, good day. We'll just cut it out in the post-production. It's not a problem. Good day to you, Colorado. Good evening, Europe. What the hell are you still doing up this late? Australia and China. Welcome to the Serbian Corner. It is a show in which two Serbians talk about the Nuggets for an extensive period of time. And my mic is out, isn't it?
I don't know. Maybe. Is it? I mean, I hear you all right. I don't know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, let's restart.
Yeah.
Good day to you, Colorado. Good evening, Europe. What the hell are you doing up this late, Australia and China? Welcome to the Serbian Corner. It is a show in which two Serbians talk about the Nuggets for an extensive period of time every week. We are presented, as always, by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app and use promo code DNVR when you sign up. My name is Miroslav Chuk. I came here with nothing smarter to do while waiting for the FIFA World Cup gold medal game. But luckily, I'm joined, as always, by Voja Medic, the best engineer among the Nuggets fans and the biggest Nuggets fan among good engineers. What's like in Voja?
It's good. I just finished the Soup Nazi episode of Seinfeld. I'm on my first watch of Seinfeld, so it's been fun. NFL's in the background at one point. Just third place World Cup game. Congrats Croatia and all that. So it's a fun morning. We did the Nuggets Serbia podcast earlier, so spoke about it. We spoke a little bit about the Nuggets in Serbian language, and let's go for the American audiences now.
I'm so envious of you for watching the Soup Nazi for the first time. It's like losing your. I don't want to say it. Okay, it's not a problem. So, title of today's show is 2.5 Serbians. Since we are joined by Jovan Buha, an NBA reporter, but more specifically a Lakers reporter for The Athletic, and to make things even more uncomfortable after last night. He is a proof of how handsome can somebody be when he is part Serbian and part Puerto Rican. Sorry about that, everybody. Jovan, did you get the chance to catch some sleep after last night's game?
A little bit. I got like 6 hours. So, yeah.
For a Friday night
much,
in LA, that sounds good.
Yeah.
You were at the arena?
Yeah, I was at the arena, and then it was one of my best friend's birthdays. So I left a little early post game. Went to go celebrate, and then came back and wrote until about like 3:30 in the morning here.
Tell me, did you get the chance to catch anybody from the Nuggets part after the game? You know, for some kind of post game interview or not?
I didn't. The way it is kind of this year is it's a little harder to go kind of locker room to locker room because each team is kind of operating under different, on different timelines. So it kind of depends when the coach speaks. And, normally it would kind of be the locker room would just kind of be open and you would go in. And then, if LeBron talks or AD talks, then everyone kind of goes there. But for the most part, everyone's kind of in the locker room. But now it's, at least on the Lakers side, it's, LeBron, Darvin, LeBron, AD, Russ always talk at the podium. And then that kind of makes it hard to balance trying to go to the locker room and talk to the players there. And also in the past, going to the opposing locker room and talking to different players. So last night was more Laker focused for me. I was there for Darvin and Russ.
So what was the vibe among the Lakers guys last night? Did they feel like they've beaten a good team, or did they actually felt that they've beaten a historically bad defensive team, which the Nuggets also are?
Well, because the ESPN broadcast said it was the Lakers' biggest win of the season, which was like, okay. I think it was Milwaukee, but
yeah, I would disagree with that. I would say it was the Milwaukee win. What was their biggest win, especially because that was on the road. And not they've beaten the Nuggets twice now, but both were at home. And I think that they were. It was kind of bittersweet because they were happy about the win, and at this point they need every win they can get with kind of the hole that they're in right now in the West. But also it was bittersweet because Anthony Davis suffered that right foot injury, and with his track record, we're still awaiting an update from the team. But they're going to be conservative with him, so I would not be surprised if he misses sometime, at least a few games, if not more. And for again a group that is trying to climb out of a 12-16 record right now, and on one hand the West is very jumbled together, and it's kind of easy to climb those standings, but on the other hand, because it's so jumbled together, that there's so much competition on a nightly basis, and it's kind of like that there's no guarantees that we thought teams like Sacramento and Utah wouldn't be that good, and all of a sudden those guys might earn playoff seeds, and not even be in the play-in tournament. So the West right now is as wild as ever, and it's been a really fun season.
Yeah, not to mention you can catch Houston on a hot night in like Phoenix and just lose to them like a couple of times in a week.
They can get hot, so it's the league. I mean, that's been one of the trends for me of this season. Is it's never felt this wide open. Like it's really on it. Like this is American football. That's kind of one of the appeals of it, is just anybody could beat anybody on any given night, and that there's kind of that parity for the most part across the league. And for the NBA, as we know, like the last several years, it kind of has been more top heavy, where it's you got your 3 to 5, maybe 6 teams that are the true contenders that win 55 plus games. And I think this season it's like the league leader might win like 54, 55 games, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's like Boston's record at the end of the season, just because of how competitive it is on a nightly basis.
Funniest thing about it is, like, San Antonio is probably the worst team in the league right now. They're trying to lose games, but then again, it's Greg Popovich-led team, so it's never an easy game against them. I mean, even if they want to lose, they still have this culture of playing the right way.
But knowing that, I was going to say, knowing them though, the last time they really tanked, they got Tim Duncan. So
yep.
See if they get Victor Wembanyama.
It's so nuts. The parity thing is so. I was like last week, I was mad at that Atlanta and Pelicans game for the Nuggets, and I was just it's not going well, all that. And then I just was like, okay, let me just go back and look through the league a little bit. And even that weekend, you just had that week like Houston just knock off a bunch of teams after Nuggets just handled Houston, and you have the Pelicans lose now. Then it's like the Celtics lost to Magic yesterday. Magic's on a 5-game winning streak or something right now. It's really crazy. And again, even like a good team, a great team as Celtics are, like they also are viable for a loss. And so it's just kind of fun to like talk about perspective especially for the Nuggets fans, because you get caught up in one team and you can lose sight of like that it's a large spectrum of games that sometimes stuff happens like other teams have experienced right now too. Like Jazz beat like Pelicans twice now, which is again like
and I'll add, like, the Lakers have been playing much better recently. Where we talked about the Bucks win, they had close overtime losses to Philly and Boston. So I know on paper it might not look like the best loss, losing to them, but with the way they've been playing recently, I don't think it's necessarily a bad loss. With they've been pushing some really good teams, right now. So I think the way Denver lost, obviously, I think would be disappointing for Nuggets fans. And I think that was a game they should have won, and kind of looked that way in the third quarter. Where
third quarter,
I mean, like we didn't even get word at the time that AD was out. We just see Thomas Bryant starting the third quarter, and then it's like, where's AD? And predictably, Denver comes out on that 9-2 run. They get a 8-point lead. Lakers call timeout. I think it stretches to 12 a couple minutes later, and then all of a sudden Lakers go on this monster run to take over the game, and then Denver kind of makes their run at the beginning of the fourth, and then Lakers respond again with another monster run to kind of blow the game open. And it was just it seemed to me like Lakers have been a very momentum-based team where they have these just monster runs against teams, but Denver, to me, kind of just something was off last night where they just weren't all there, I felt like, mentally.
Yeah, as far as the Lakers, they got also just to put that in perspective for Nuggets fans, it was like a 20-5 run in the end of the third for the Lakers, I believe, and they've had a 32-5 on the Celtics the other night. So as you said, like it's not uncommon. It's not the Nuggets just completely collapsed, but it was like both ways of. We watched that third quarter, and it was these seeds of the seeds of stuff that went wrong for the Nuggets were just piling on. Even when they were up by 12, few of the buckets the Lakers had were Gordon forgets, LeBron on help side. He just turns his back on him. LeBron cuts, dunks. You have the missed layup, like Murray, passes the ball off someone's leg. It's a turnover, fast break, and then like that momentum was going all the way, and then that flagrant foul kind of was just. It almost just was defeating for the Nuggets, even though they were up 7. After that, it just started missing layups, fast break. Ross comes in, energy, and then the first half was one stat that kind of showed how the path to Lakers win against the Nuggets, especially was turnovers and then points in the paint. Like in that second quarter when Nuggets were controlling it, it was 0 turnovers for 8 minutes of Nuggets play and 0 points in the paint for the Lakers. They had that zone mix and match with Denver in there, and then they had 4 turnovers in the last 33 minutes of the half, and it just that's where I think where the seeds were for losing the game were, like that end of second quarter when Lakers kind of was like, okay, this is how we can do this, and that's how they've been doing it, which is fast breaks and really physical play, and it was really, and then also AD getting hurt for me was just seemed like caught the Nuggets off guard as well. Like they were like, okay, we got to deal with Thomas Bryant completely differently now. Now LeBron's on the 5. Like, what's happening there? Like, it was just kind of weirdly off kilter. Like,
that's actually my biggest takeaway from this game is Nikola Jokic turning Thomas Bryant into a prime Dwight Howard last night. So European fans usually expect the basketball team not to be too reliant on a single player, but in the NBA, so much is revolving around your franchise guys. I mean, it's crazy. I felt like he wasn't happy with the way the team was playing on offense. I've seen several possessions where he was annoyed by how much time Jamal Murray took to take him the ball to the top of the key. And even on one instance, I thought he was like, F this, man, and just gave the ball back to Jamal like with 5 seconds before the end of the possession, with nothing really going on there. Just
was like a high post up for Jamal.
That's right. And it was the opposite thing for a lot of this game, where you get Jokic on the high post with like 12 seconds to work with, and I mean he's really good at it. But still, let's make things. And the most difficult thing for me from last night is the fact that 20-5 run happened with Nikola Jokic on the court.
Yep.
So if you get that, if you're the Nuggets, there's probably no hope for you of coming back, because I didn't feel at all that Nuggets had a chance in that fourth quarter. That the game was really lost in the third quarter.
Even though it shouldn't have, I mean, it was still very close. That third quarter it didn't end on a 10-point Lakers lead. It was still like really single digits, but it just didn't seem like it was gonna go that way. It just always I always like it's always that way in LA somehow with the Nuggets. It really rarely is like the Nuggets come in and take that game. It's always just kind of there, and then Max Christie, like Nunn, and last time was Lonnie Walker in the October game. They just went off. It's kind of these guys always against the Nuggets, not Lakers just specifically. It's just other teams do have all these like random players, because just that's how Nuggets are structured. They don't have like, I guess, defenders on the second unit to pair these like different guys.
The Lakers shot the ball really well. They made 12 threes. I think shot 36% on threes, which is rare for them as one of the worst shooting teams in the league. So when I see Patrick Beverley had his season high last night of 10 points, and it was just kind of like when it rains it pours. It felt like where it was just LA got hot, and they really have been one of these teams that just these wild swings in games where they could be down 20 and then all of a sudden they're up 4, and it doesn't really make sense. But they've been consistently inconsistent all season.
That's what we said last week about the Nuggets too.
Denver 17 and 11 though. Denver is still
exactly. We I think this is a little bit of over exaggeration. Just the way you said how some of these losses have happened is that what worries us for a contender. If it was like 5 years ago for the Nuggets, this would have been a great season. If they're like 23-24 and coming up in the West, this is supposed to be like they said championship or bust. So if that's the case, this is not how a championship or bust team looks like or responds. I want to ask you about the Lakers though. those runs and stuff, like it's like, is there like a specific correlation you follow it like a lot? What happens during these runs that Lakers do well? Is it specific lineups or style of play that they implement in those situations, or is it just sometimes just clicks and they just go?
I think it's defensive engagement, and you alluded to it where, like last night they had 11 steals, and I don't have, but I think 7 or 8 of those were in the second half, and it just felt like a big part of the 2 runs was them really swarming and rotating and forcing turnovers, and then they are a dangerous transition team, but what one of the downsides of that is sometimes they're too focused on trying to get out in transition and not crashing back and on the defensive glass, and that's where you've seen already they're a small team, so teams are going to have advantages in the paint in that respect, but you also see them sometimes just not boxing out and trying to get out in transition. But I thought last night, sometimes you see this in the NBA where a star or a starter goes out and then that team almost plays better because there's kind of a focus that they have of like, we have to, especially with AD, and he's been their best player this season. He's obviously their best defender and really their only rim protector, on the team. And like, I think there was kind of a collective focus of, okay, AD's out, we have to rally, and everyone has to do more. And I think you saw that definitely offensively, where they shared the ball, they moved the ball well, shot the ball well. But defensively, I think, because I was surprised, like, Lakers threw some zone at the Nuggets, which the Nuggets picked apart in the first half.
Oh my god, that was
it was hilarious.
That was the first half. Jokic had that in the middle, right? Like he dumped it off to Gordon, but it was like it seemed like it took like forever. He was kind of like, oh, let's see where we're gonna go. That's like the worst.
He was just picking them apart.
Yeah.
And but then in the second half, they went to like that LeBron at center lineup, and that's something that they used last season, and it kind of throws teams off where LeBron still, when he's engaged defensively, can be a good productive defender, and then offensively it's just so difficult when you have a center trying to match up with LeBron, or you put a center on a guard, and now Lakers might put that guy in the corner, and now your center is away from the paint.
Austin Reeves,
I think, and I think you saw that. So I think, I also think Michael Porter Jr. was a big absence for Denver. I think in this matchup against the Lakers, he's a guy that the Lakers don't really have a matchup for. So if he's coming in getting hot, 20 points, a few offensive rebounds, some backdoor cuts and stuff, like he's a guy who I think can really hurt the Lakers in this given matchup, because the one thing that hurts the Lakers is size and athleticism. They just don't have the type of players to match up with those guys, and I think MPJ obviously is probably him and Aaron Gordon kind of fit that bill for guys that I think can give the Lakers some trouble. So I think Denver was clearly missing that last night. But yeah, I mean their second half, like it was just like the body language and some of the mental errors, and like it felt like they were missing layups and just stupid turnovers, and it felt like and as you guys were kind of talking about, like it just felt like they weren't there, and something was kind of off with just, I don't know if they expected the Lakers to roll over and then kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit or what, but I was surprised because it felt like in that early third they were about to take over, and it was just okay. Mm-hmm. Denver's going to win this game. Yeah. Like it makes sense, and then all of a sudden the Lakers just kind of lit a match and just got after it.
Yeah, it was the discipline. I mean, you touched upon the zone on the other end when Lakers went small with LeBron, which was weird. Like why? Again, like I'm not follow Lakers as closely to know like the numbers of Lakers against the zones and stuff. But first half looked like the Denver zone really worked well, especially in that second quarter. They kind of limited the shooting with it, and Lakers with bad shooting generally, and then the paint was also occupied all the time, and so the layups weren't coming as clearly as they would in transition. And then when LeBron goes on 5, for some reason they stayed on man, and what you said, they put Jokic in a guard, which was Austin Reeves. And I was like, he's not the guy you want to put Jokic on, especially because he knows what to do in those situations. Like he punished some of the slower closeouts and then shots from the corner. That's why I said like they were so discombobulating that third quarter. When they were playing zone, ended up being that Jeff Green was in the middle, and so when the ball got to Thomas Bryant in the middle of the zone, he just turned around and bodied Jeff Green and made a layup. The offensive rebounds were just all over the place. Like Denver you could see three guys around Thomas Bryant, but no one's like, they weren't gang boxing out. Like they made, because Jokic was out there in the perimeter. Kind of similar what happens to Utah, last few years in playoffs with Gobert just outside. It's just, they're liable for offensive rebounding. But it was all lack of discipline. Again, forgetting guys, like they want to put on, they want to stay in on zone. Bones is just too deep on the initial set, and then Jokic is yelling him like, go on LeBron, and then he goes on LeBron passes over in the corner shorter, or someone like hits a three because they were in position. But they were like, that's initial setup of the defense, not even like late on closeouts or someone did a really good move on offense. It was just basic stuff at the beginning. So that was, again, that's why it was so frustrating. Otherwise, it doesn't, like, who no matter if it was Lakers or if it was Houston, no matter who it would have been on the other side, it was just the way that they lost it. It was just disheartening in that way, just the fundamental and organizational basketball that was lacking in that third.
I like the points you've made about the roster construction, about Lakers being having problems with big wings on the opposition side, and also I want to speak a bit about how they've constructed their rosters, both Lakers and Nuggets, for this season. But before we do that, Voja, it's time for our friends from DraftKings Sportsbook.
All right, let's do this. So it's time of year. Everyone's excited about the gifts, the holiday spirit, but what about all the basketball? When I throw down on the NBA action, it's got to be with DraftKings Sportsbook, official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on any NBA team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. So use code DNVR at signup to get $150 for free in bets if you bet $5 on a pregame money line. Plus, everyone can combine multiple bets for a bigger payout with DraftKings. Same game parlays, these are called. And so, as I said last week, and I say it every time, the app is really great for as an interface app, really user friendly, and we can you can look up all the basically that day's games, all the money lines, over unders, and it's really cool. We don't have Charlotte's numbers for tomorrow, or we're kind of talking about, like, especially how the Nuggets are trending down with defense. You might want to check out Kelly Oubre's numbers, some of the total numbers for the game. Charlotte can get hot really quick, especially everyone's back now. And then also on the other end, there's Jokic, and on who's going to guard Jokic is Plumlee and Nick Richards. So you want to look at his rebounds and also some points on there as well.
Look at the total points for both teams. If it's set like at 230.5 or something like that, just go over. I mean, maybe. I think you should go over.
Very possibly. So, and also, Maryland sports fans, listen up. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in your state as well. I'm in Nebraska, so I can't bet, but I'm waiting for DraftKings to hit here. But Maryland people can do that right now. Download the app now to get on the holiday hoops action. Sign up with the code DNVR. Place a $5 bet pregame money line on NBA team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code DNVR. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. You can see show notes or podcast notes in the podcast platform for details.
Okay, we are back. So before we jump into the roster construction of the two teams, we have witnessed on Wednesday a historic, like 1983-esque performance from the Nuggets against the Wizards, when they've scored 141 points on only 4 made threes, because they've made 98 paint points. Now, considering the Nuggets scored those 12 points off of threes and another 29 from the three-point line, we realized that Nuggets were able to make only 1 2-pointer from outside of the paint, which is a remarkable defensive job from the Wizards. They've really taken away that mid-rangers from the Nuggets, didn't they? Now, why I'm bringing this up? Jovan, tell us, did Rob Pelinka construct this season's Lakers roster with intention of playing like Nuggets against Washington, so he thought he doesn't need any 3-point shooters on the team this season?
Well, I think I think that the Lakers tried to do the bet. I mean, they had limited resources. They only had the taxpayer mid level exception. At the time, I was very critical. I thought Lonnie Walker was a bad signing. I wrote that I thought he was the worst taxpayer mid level signing of any team. But I think he's been a steal with the way he's been their third leading scorer this season. Has really played at a more consistent level than we saw in San Antonio, and I think has been more engaged defensively. That was my two biggest criticisms were his shot selection in San Antonio and his defensive effort in San Antonio, and he's really improved in both categories in LA. But to your point, I mean, shooting is a big issue for this group, and I think they were anticipating making a Russell Westbrook trade. I think that's looking less likely right now. But that was part of bringing in Pat and Dennis was, if we do trade Russ, we're probably not getting a point guard back. We're looking to upgrade the front court, maybe get a bigger wing. So now we have Pat and Dennis, two guys who have been NBA starters. Obviously have not played to that level this season. And I think that's, in a way, like Russ has grown in importance for the Lakers because Pat and Dennis haven't played that well, and they played well last night, but that's not been a common occurrence. And I think the Lakers kind of look at it like if we trade Russ right now, that point guard spot is a pretty big hole where we have two guys who might not even be rotation players for a lot of playoff teams right now. So I think that they're balancing that, but the shooting is a big problem. I think it is the biggest, but I think that the size almost is as much of a problem because it's like, if you're going to be small, you need to be, you tend to see that those smaller lineups are really good at shooting, and you space teams out, and then you beat them off the dribble, and it's just a bunch of driving kick, dribble drive, creating threes. The Lakers do that, but they don't make the threes for the most part, and so I think really the two biggest criticisms of the roster, in my opinion, are the lack of 3-point shooting and the lack of size, particularly on the perimeter. And as they look to likely upgrade, moving Patrick Beverley and Kendrick Nunn with a first-round pick or a couple seconds, they need to address that with either getting a lights-out shooter and or some more size in the rotation. So I think that's what they're going to be looking to upgrade. But I agree. I mean, in the modern, I've written this a couple times, like in the modern NBA, you look at the last 10 champions, all 10 of them, 8 of the 10 were top 10 in 3-point shooting in the regular season. The two exceptions were the 2014 Spurs, who became the best 3-point shooting team in that postseason and had that crazy run, and then the 2020 Lakers, but they were great defensively and had two top 5 players in LeBron and AD at the time. So those two are the exceptions, but everyone else, Miami Heat, Dallas, Golden State, Cleveland, all those teams were top 10 3-point shooting teams. And it's hard to win in the modern NBA if you can't shoot threes and have a shootout with someone. So that's something the Lakers, for that reason alone, I feel like that, they're not a true contender, obviously, aside from even their record. But for them to have any chance, even a puncher's chance in the playoffs, they got to upgrade the shooting.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the size of the Lakers, because when we were going into this season, we were very happy with Nuggets size because we've had Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr.'s at the forward positions, and both of those guys are practically mismatches for most of the teams because they're pretty huge. And now that Michael Porter has missed 11, 12 games in a row, now we have Bruce Brown, who is a really good player, but he is super small. He is 6'4".
Forward, yeah.
Yeah, for a small forward. So we are kind of getting into the similar kind of problems, like maybe not as hard as the one with the Lakers. Obviously, Nuggets have a better record, even with Michael Porter missing from the team. But what is also interesting about the Nuggets is that Calvin Booth, the GM of the Nuggets, really gave his best to bring enough defenders to the team to improve on defense, and the Nuggets are right now 27, 28 team in the league in defense. And you mentioned like for the last 10 seasons 3-point shooting for the championship, defense is a pretty big thing as
Defense
well.
is always
Like
important.
like in last 20 something seasons, there was like only one team that wasn't a top 5 defense, and that was also the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq, I think in 2000 and I don't know 2 or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
like the second of like the back-to-back, like the second title, I think they said.
So how does the Nuggets defense look to you? I mean, I know it didn't look great last night, but do you have any idea what could be the reason for a team with so many supposedly really good defensive players really struggling, like in epic ways this season?
Yeah, well, I really like the KCP and Bruce Brown pickups. I thought Denver had one of the better off seasons of any West team. The only move I wasn't a big fan of was the DeAndre Jordan signing, especially after seeing how bad he was in LA and Philly, and then he was the first signing of free agency.
No, that's so bad.
Like even Dwight Howard, I think was much better than DeAndre was, and I know he comes with some locker room stuff, I guess, but that has kind of scared some teams off. But if they wanted a veteran center to back Nikola, like Dwight was right there. Obviously other guys too, but that's the one thing. But I think in their best, I guess it depends on their best lineups, because I think theoretically the best lineup, closing lineup in a playoff series, it's going to have Nikola, Jamal, and MPJ. But then it's like, what are those two final spots? It's KCP, and is it Bruce Brown? Is it Aaron Gordon? Like I don't know, but I think MPJ has kind of been an inconsistent guy who has the length and athleticism and size, but like I know isn't necessarily again the most consistent or like high IQ defender. And then I think Jamal has kind of been up and down defensively. So I think it's hard. You look at the best closing lineups and kind of like the Warriors and that like just go back to the last finals, Boston and Golden State, like they didn't really have any defensive weaknesses. And even Steph, I think, has become at least a league average, if not slightly above league average defender. He's bulked up a little bit. He's got some good size and length at the point guard spot. So like, I think it's more so that. And then I do think some of the bench guys like Bones isn't great defensively, and I think DeAndre is big, but I don't I think he's kind of one of those guys that's like gonna contest, but guys can score on him. So I think for them, it's still 2 of their 3 best players aren't great defenders, and that's kind of a difficult recipe for I think like long-term postseason success. But I think if MPJ can figure it out, and I think their team scheme is fine, and again last night did not look good, but I don't know. I think for them, like the theory is probably just their offense can be so good, it can be the best in the league, that maybe that if you have the best offense or top 2 or 3 offense and top 10, 12 defense, like that's still the recipe for a deep playoff run. We know how good Nikola is in the postseason, and I think he's special enough to carry them basically in any series. So they always have a chance, at least because of how great he is.
Voja, were you more encouraged by the Nuggets defense, or did they even drop even lower in your eyes?
Well,
drop lower, because I feel like they're one of those teams where like I think it's kind of like with Russ. Like I'm gonna make a weird kind of analogy here, but like with Russ, his misses and his turnovers, like there are guys who we consider really good who shoot a similar field goal percentage or turn the ball over a similar amount. But with Russ, it's like he misses a shot, it's like he's clanging it off the backboard, and he turns the ball over and he's like throwing it into the third row, and it's just like the magnitude of his misses and his turnovers are
and what
louder.
Times he misses
and
too.
it kind of sticks in your head more. And with Denver defensively, I think when they're not defending well, it's just a layup line and or offensive rebounds, putbacks and stuff. So like I think it kind of looks worse than maybe some other teams, because when they're not locked in defensively, it just kind of all breaks down and it becomes really easy to score on them. Whereas some other teams, it might be like they're giving up threes, or like they're late on contests, but they're still contesting, and teams are hitting tough shots against them. But like with Denver, I feel like when it breaks down, it really breaks down, and it looks pretty bad, as it did last night a couple times. So I think for them overall, it's maybe not as bad as some of the numbers look, but I think when it is bad, it is a real problem for them.
What do you think?
Yeah,
about
that's why we've
progress?
had like those basically blowout losses when there are losses, and because apparently not a lot of minutes so far in the clutch, because that's either Denver wins comfortably, or they get blown out, which is uncharacteristic for traditionally Nuggets teams. Is in the clutch, apparently they're like 14th on defense or something like that, like 85 defensive rating, and that's what's annoying. Is that's what you said, Jovan, with the scheme, is like we don't even know yet if the scheme completely doesn't work for this team, because it's again a third year in a row someone else is in charge of defense, or at least like third in 4 years, or it was Wes Unseld, then it's Jordy, and now it's Ryan Saunders, and we don't even know yet if it is, because again I was talking about yesterday, especially it's the breakdowns, but are just the roster has individual defenders. Jokic knows where to be in which spots, but he's not supposed to be your Draymond Green on defense. He's supposed to be in good spots, and everyone else around him is good. Basically, like Steph, just a reverse, like instead of a point guard, a center. And yesterday, you would see again guys like forgetting where to be and not focused, or just like we're gonna let this guy pass us, and then becomes a layup line. And then you have Jokic. For example, one play I noted was, they miss. It was a bad miss. Westbrook gets the ball. He does his thing, starts pushing. Bones is on him, but Bones is kind of like a puppy, like just running around his legs, like nothing really to be in front of him. And then you have Jokic on the back line with already 3 fouls and like 15 minutes left in the game. And so it's like, what am I going to do? Like meet Westbrook at the rim and like try to block him? He's going to get a foul. Like there's whoever it was, there's going to it's going to have to be like 5 guys in the league that you would have to be like, oh, you can block Westbrook on a full-on fast break. And so it ends up being a layup next to Jokic, and you clip that out, and then you go on Twitter and like, he's trash. He doesn't know how to play defense. When in turn, it's more complex than just, Jokic can defend the rim. But again, he's been also slower on some covers this year as well. And just that's why it's all over the place. So it's not even, I can't even say, fire this coach, or this scheme should be better. It's just, for now, they're not even playing well within the same scheme. They're not like, if I can see them like, hey, being in their spots, they're reading the right spots where they be, or the right rotations, and then they're getting beat. Then you can say, okay, let's switch this up a bit. But now it's just they're just flying around. Like at one point it was Gordon doubled from the baseline when he left. Like Schroeder was just running around. It ended up being like a triple on LeBron for no reason, on a high, like way high post up, and then he just swings the ball back, gets to the corner as a easy 3-pointer, and that was all when Denver was leading. There was still that's what the plays that were climbing back from the game the Nuggets technically controlled before that. So that's why it's so annoying. That's what's annoying to me, just that readiness, especially as I mentioned before a few times here. I'm watching Red Star now in EuroLeague a lot more, and I'm like, oh my god, like give me that discipline for the NBA team. Like it just complete, like sky and earth difference.
It's a great analogy, because if we would see this kind of defense in Europe, we would be sure that the coach doesn't have any influence on the team. It would be just like, these guys hate him, so they don't want to play defense for him. This is the NBA. It's much more complex, or much more simple. It depends on how you look at things, because we have these multi-million-dollar guys in the locker room, and they cannot be as controlled as they can be in Europe, I guess. So I don't want to give any big proclamations about what is happening in the Nuggets locker room, because we have no idea.
We don't know. Yeah, we don't know.
The NBA has like the value of the regular season is so low right now with the NBA that you really cannot read too much into it. I mean, until you get like after like 50 games or something like that, when you can see the teams that are actually going to compete for the playoffs. Because the Lakers, for instance, they still have the time. I mean, if they would make it a good run, and they could, I mean, they cannot compete for top 4 seeds for sure, but they could squeeze into the play-in and even maybe in the 6th spot or something like that. And there's still hope for them because the season is so fucking long. But before that, I just have no proclamations about the Nuggets locker room, and I really hope there's still time for them.
Someone needs to call a meeting. I was like, yeah, we need an old-fashioned players only meeting.
Players only.
The
one thing, I mean, and to the point you just made about the regular season, like I think for Denver at this point, obviously, seeding is going to matter because seeding always matters. But I think for them, it's about building things up and staying healthy for the postseason. Because to me, this is a team that it's kind of like conference finals or bust, right? Like this is a group that I think the West, like there's no Golden State right now. Or even Phoenix from the last couple of years. Like there's no real dominant West team, and I think New Orleans and Memphis are good teams, but I think Denver could beat both of those teams in a playoff series. I wouldn't say they'd be like a heavy underdog. So I think for Denver, this is as great of a chance as I think they've had, assuming they stay healthy. So I think for them, like there's also probably some of that where they've already made a conference finals. Jamal and MPJ have dealt with injuries over the last couple of years, and it's just like let's get to the postseason. Let's stay healthy. Let's build up to that, and then in a 7-game series, like we can really lock in. And I think they are one of those teams that like has played better in the playoffs, even with being undermanned, obviously, and not having some of their best players. So for them, I think it's tough to judge them, in my opinion.
I know that's why it's hard
in the regular season until you see them when the games truly matter, and it's like okay, because to me they're right there with like I would not be shocked if they win the West. Like I think they should definitely be in that mix.
Yeah.
On that note, we will take a short break and come back in the third segment. And we're back. So, Jovan, I don't know if you realize this, but this is already the 8th season of Nikola Jokic and Michael Malone on the Nuggets, which is a pretty long stretch for any head coach to be on an NBA team. I think he's like top 3 right now for the longest tenure in a team. And I've always known that this season would be super stressful for the Nuggets fans. It's because of great expectations. I really miss those innocent years of building a playoff team, like season 2, 3, 4, 5. This is why I want to ask you, Jovan, since you have a good insight into the Lakers fan base, how stressful is it for the fans when the team is objectively bad, but everybody expects them to become miraculously better and content for the championship again?
Well, I think it's tough to box Laker fans in because there's so many of them and there's so many different types where, I think there's kind of a Laker fan stereotype of, arrogant and they want every star and, they're entitled and this and that. But like, there are a lot of doom and gloom Laker fans who almost to the point where like, I almost feel like they like the kind of drama and, the soap opera of the team. It's always, even last night, like they can't have like a normal game. There's always something that has to happen, an injury or, an ejection or whatever. Like there's always something going on with this team. But I think that it's the lights are definitely brighter. And I think you see like some role players come in and play better and some role players come in and play worse because, you have hundreds of people, thousands of people in your comments, when you're not playing well. And I think, like if you look at anything Patrick Beverley's been posting, all the replies are, how bad he's playing. And just the Lakers have such a big fan base that, every NBA player deals with that to some extent, but just, with the Lakers, it's times 5, times 10, right?
Probably more
And they just
merciless
have,
too because of delivering.
yeah. And because they're like, for Laker fans, I think the one thing that's tough is most organizations, there's that incremental progress of, okay, make the playoffs. Okay, now, win the division. Okay, make a conference semifinals, conference finals. Okay, make the finals. Okay, win a championship. For the Lakers, every season it's championship or bust. Like they are, and obviously recently it's been a lot of busts. And the fan base has been frustrated. But for them, it's like if we're not winning the championship, like it's a failure. And so it's very, for a lot of fan bases and organizations, I think you can have that progress and you could be building towards something, and it can be fun and enjoyable. And sometimes the journey is just as fun as the destination. For the Lakers and Laker fans, it's only the destination. It's only, we're competing with Boston, and, now Golden State's been winning a lot, and we got to, help LeBron get more rings than Steph. And like, it's just very kind of on you either win or you don't win. And I think a lot of fans are like that kind of to some extent, where, a lot of, if you don't win the championship, you're kind of disappointed. But for the Lakers, I think it's a little bit more, that's kind of all they care about. And I think it can sometimes lead to an unhealthy kind of dynamic on especially on social media, where it's like, players are getting called out and attacked and whatnot. But it's also like, they made the final. I mean, if you look at NBA history, they've made the finals almost every other year. I think, before this kind of recent stretch where they were struggling so much, like I think up until like 2010, they had been almost basically every other year in history, like the Lakers were in the finals. So it's like that kind of like, that's why the fan base is the way they are. And they expect championships. They expect to make the finals. So I think they've been really frustrated with kind of the way this season has been going.
Well, especially because that's what you said. They're used to it. And on that level, it's spoiled, but like not like, oh, they're bratty, but it's just spoiled because, okay, we're used to winning. Like, why are you not winning again? And then when other fan bases are like, okay, we know how kind of we're used to 10 years of bad, and then we got a few draft picks and we can make the playoffs, and then we can go through it and try to get, and then the conference finals is a big success. So it's like that weird, like, discrepancy of like, because we've been in basically every other finals for the last like 30 years. Why are we not always? And it's just, again, that's what they can do to the fan base. And I agree with you with the Twitter and the social media is it's always the vocal minority. There's no way there's every fan goes in and like bitches at Patrick Beverly like in his comments, that every Laker fan does that. It's just the ones we hear and see are like more vocal, I guess.
To be fair to Lakers fans, I mean, we know
let's not be fair.
They have that unfair advantage of a prestigious franchise in a city that offers a lot to the rich NBA players. So a great player like LeBron just falls in their lap for nothing. But it's not a thing that's unheard of in Europe, because you have those Real Madrids, Barcelonas, Manchester Cities, Paris Saint-Germains, and frankly, Red Star and Partizan, if you level up if you scale down to the level of Serbia, those teams will also get the best players that are available locally. So this is why I'm going to make a promise and not make any Lakers jokes while podcasting for a full week. This starts after this show is over, of course, because next week
it's good.
Yeah, for next week's show it should be good.
I gotta ask Jovan. I gotta ask you. This was the other day. It was who was some big Laker account posted that there was interest in Lakers in like Dame Lillard, and they listed off a bunch of like top names for trading those guys, and everyone basically all the jokes were like, well, I have interest in like Sidney Sweeney, and I have interest to go into space. It was just kind of funny. Like, what do you think when you see some of those posts? Like, oh yeah, Damian Lillard, we have interest in trading for him, and like, who doesn't?
I mean, I reported I reported that they have interest in Durant and Lillard and Beal, but I think that's more of it's very situational. Where I think those I said like pie in the sky, which is just very minimal chance. But I think with the Lakers, like they are the one franchise
Well, they
that
can do it. Yeah, exactly.
like if one franchise can kind of pull us, then like we've seen it where they I mean they had the whole 80s run, and then it's like they're down for a few years, then they get Shaq, and then Kobe becomes a star, and then they're down for a few years, then they get Powell, and they win some championships, and they're down for a few years, they get LeBron and AD, and like this has just kind of been the history of this team where like they are the glamour franchise of the
is
league.
that like for the next offseason or during the season?
Yeah, I think it would probably be more next offseason.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like in the middle of this, like now, like okay, let's
like
go
with Beal technically.
Well, yeah, with
him,
him,
he has a no trade clause, so he can kind of approve like depending on the it would have to be Washington's pulling the plug. We're rebuilding.
They can be really close to
Russ and 2 picks makes the money work. Lakers maybe throw in another young player or two, and but also, I mean, once you open up the bidding war, like then other teams can offer more, but Bradley has to sign off on going there, so it would have to be a situation that he's interested in. Of course, as well as them offering something that's Washington deems fair. With Portland, because I think the thing with Portland and Washington is like those 2 contracts are huge. Yeah. Like those are the 2 biggest contracts in league history. So it's like I don't know if you guys listened to the last Low Post podcast, but they were kind of talking about this where like Zach was saying he talked to like 20 different people about Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard's contracts, and he almost got like 20 different perspectives on it of like it's a bad contract, it's a good contract, it's valuable, it's not valuable. Like, so it really depends on how you look at it. But if things go south in either situation and they all of a sudden are like, we don't want to commit to 50 plus million annually for the next 5 years, Jesus. Like I think the Lakers would step in and be like, we'll take that. And Russ is like one of the few contracts that can match that. With KD, I think it's that would obviously be again Brooklyn going south. But I think more realistic would be them trying to get a star next offseason.
Okay,
they'll have
that's
the third first round pick as soon as the draft, and then from that point on, they can attach 3 picks. And those Laker picks, I think, are potentially going to be very valuable. Right? Good, so, like end of the decade Laker pick, like that. I mean, we'll see. Like New Orleans might get Victor Wembanyama, which would be insane. If they just add him to
worst case scenario.
Honestly, to be honest. Isn't it? I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, honest for those top 5s now, there's like Brandon Miller and like the Twins guys and the Scoot Henderson. Like, no matter who, if they get Lakers end up
5 picks, they're getting a really good play, like potential all-star to add to that core. So like, you're already seeing the value in acquiring a Lakers pick. And of course, if they get a star, then theoretically they should be better later in the decade. Maybe it's someone that can play with AD for a while, but you never know. And AD obviously has an injury history, so you don't know how long his prime is going to be. A lot of people thought he was washed up entering this season off the last couple of years. So I think for the Lakers, like they're always star hunting for better or worse. Like that is just how the organization is. But I think for them to give up those 2 picks, it's got to be something that's really worth it. Personally, I would have done the Indiana trade. I think this group with Miles Turner and Buddy Hield would have been a much better team. I think they probably would have a few more wins right now, and we'd be talking about them as at least a play-in team. But they didn't think it was worth it to give up those 2 picks, and we'll see kind of if they're proven right, because I think the level AD's been at, we'll see with the injury right now, but I think he's been one of the best players in the league. And, I think had they made that deal, I think they'd be in a much better position right now.
And I have enough final question for as far as this. Is it because, again, like my point was, wouldn't anyone be interested in those guys basically?
Sure.
And because it's the Lakers, it just gets reported more in that way of like, because we know that they can. Is that you? Do you think that's kind of like what's not just like you're an athletic, like that's like a big. Well, these like smaller blog posts and stuff. Like, hey,
people want the clicks. I think with the Lakers, it's it's okay. Like Orlando wants, Orlando's interested in Kevin Durant, but like realistically, Orlando isn't a situation. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they put Paolo on the table, but like, I mean, you got to think about like where the star wants to go, and if you just look at recent last 5, 7, 8 years, even more so, it's kind of been concentrated in the bigger markets where every time a star becomes available, it's the same teams. It's the LA teams, it's the New York teams, it's Miami, and then maybe it's like a warm weather Phoenix or Dallas or something. But it's kind of always the same 5 or 6 teams that get reported that Jimmy Butler and Kawhi Leonard and LeBron and AD and like the Kyrie, like they all have kind of the same 3 to 6 teams on their list. And it's just, that's kind of right now where when stars become available, these are the franchises that want them. So I think, to your point, on one hand, you attach Lakers to anything, it's going to get more clicks. It's going to get talked about. On the other hand, I think they're also one of the few teams that I think has a legit chance to get some of these guys if they do become available. So it's kind of like, I think it on one hand, it's kind of obvious that, of course, everyone wants a Kevin Durant, a Dame Lillard, like who doesn't? But on the other hand, I think it's also, there's a little bit more substance to the Lakers wanting those guys because they're one of the few teams that can actually, I think, be attractive to them and get them.
Unfortunately for everyone else.
Yes.
Hey, it's Real Madrid. That's
it is.
That's
I mean, it sucks, but it is.
We actually,
it's also fun. I mean, fun to have one. If we didn't have like the Lakers or some team like Real Madrid, like you said, Real Madrid, it wouldn't be as fun also to like hate, like sport hate.
Yeah. It's worse in Europe. You have the Lakers. You probably have the Celtics. I don't know how attractive the Celtics are. I mean, outside of the basketball thing right now, but yeah, you have those supermarkets. Jovan, would you like to plug something, or do you have some final thoughts before we finish up the show for today?
Just at Jovan Buha on all social platforms. I've been very active on TikTok. For those who are on TikTok, it hasn't been banned yet in the U.S. We'll see. It might get banned. But yeah, and then just check out my work on The Athletic. It is Lakers focused, but you can read it and enjoy or read it after a loss. Read it after a Lakers loss and when I'm critical of the team. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's a great honor to speak with 2 Serbians and 2.5 Serbs. I love the show title for today.
Awesome. It was great.
It was fun to talk to you guys.
Yeah, I have to make a confession. I was listening to a lot of Lakers podcasts this season because I really enjoy when they're not really good. So you just have to involve yourself into the turmoil
There's nothing like when the Lakers are bad. It's so dramatic. It's so dramatic.
Beautiful.
It's so juicy. Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all from us today. But before we go, let me remind you to be on the lookout for us making an occasional DraftKings Sportsbook lock of the game on Twitter. We want to help you earn a lot of money with our impeccable takes. Last week in that Wizards game, the over on AG's points and Bones points hit so easily. It was just embarrassing for our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. They were basically handing over free money. But I did let you down telling you to bet on Nicola's over on the assists as he missed it by 1. Never bet on Nicola being unselfish. I guess that's the lesson that we've learned. For all the true fanatics that stuck with us all the way to this sentence, thank you for being awesome and go Nuggets.
Idemo Nuggets.